I sometimes wonder how cities that are stuck in their ways, or more so, I should say, they were built a certain way, say decades ago, maybe even centuries ago, like the initial city planning and designs and infrastructure, like they're entrenched. So how do you start to chip away at that entrenchment and get a more livable city, get a city that has an efficient bike network, that has walkability, that doesn't just have ridiculously catered to thoroughfares for vehicles? How do you get back to something that's more of a European style, or at least find a balance that makes more sense, cuts down on noise pollution, cuts down on the over-reliance on vehicles, increases efficiency of city transit and public transport systems, has more people doing physical exercise, which yields over time, obviously, health benefits and environmental benefits. So why are so many North American cities so crap, and Dutch cities have figured something out? Let's get to the video. My name is Mace, coming to you from Canada. And yeah, let's check it out, man. Let's see what this video has. I'm interested to learn a thing or two. I'm also a rapper and producer. You can find my music on all streaming platforms. Just search Macy, MAC3Y. That is me. You will find me rapping and writing. I rap. It's a good creative outlet for me that I enjoy. If you check it out, I'll be much appreciated. If not, hey, that's okay too. Let's get to this. Why many cities suck, but Dutch cities don't. All right.
This is the video I wish I could have seen 20 years ago, as it would have saved me a lot of time figuring out where I wanted to live. Which is here, in the Netherlands.
I like cities. They're places where people get together and do interesting things. But you gotta admit that some cities are better than others.
Just cut to the American sprawling mall. It's a mall. Look, it's a shopping mall. If any of you have seen that stand-up bit by George Carlin, this is the time to think about it. America is a giant shopping mall.
And not all cities are great. Why is that? I grew up in a typical car-dependent, car-infested city called London.
Suburbanite?
No, London, Ontario, Canada. Like most people in small cities, I gravitated to the nearest big city, which in my case was Toronto. It was pretty clear to me that this was a much more interesting place than where I grew up, and so I wanted to move there as soon as possible. I assumed that the reason Toronto seemed so great to me was because of the population, so I kept moving around to bigger and bigger cities to find the one that was right for me. San Francisco, London, Hong Kong.
Damn, this guy's lived a lot of places. I wish I had the courage and the freedom to do that. I don't know if I even would, though, to be honest. I think a lot of people kind of stay where they grew up. You know, there is something to be said for getting out of there, getting out of Dodge. But at the same time, there's a level of comfortability here. And look, I can walk 5 minutes and I'm in the forest. I can bike 5 minutes and I'm in the forest. I can drive 10 minutes. I'm at a lake with no people. That's what I like about where I live. So when it comes to nature and recreation, I'm not a fan of sharing those spaces with incredibly ridiculous amounts of people, like overly populated amounts of people. Like, I don't want to go to the lake and be shoulder to shoulder with other people swimming. Like, I want to find spots that are pristine, untouched, to a degree, right? You want to have some privacy. So that's where I lived in the city. I lived in Vancouver for years. And it's a beautiful city, don't get me wrong, but not the best.
Taipei, and several others. And I did like these places, so it seemed like population was important.
And it certainly explains why I like living in London, England, but hated London, Ontario.
But there was something missing, because even within a city, not all places were equal.
I wanted to know, why did I like downtown? And yet, I hated the suburbs.
My initial assumption was population density. I mean, the more people you have in a small area, the more interesting stuff can happen, right? But that didn't really seem to explain it all either, because not all dense places were interesting. And this is when I stumbled across my first bit of real urban planning, the concept of walkability. This describes how easy it is to walk in an area and how easy it is to sort of go about your daily routine only by walking. A comparison between where I lived in both Londons made this pretty clear. Walkability was an important metric of what made a place interesting to me. Of course, when you delve a little deeper into the concept of walkability, it becomes very clear that until about 100 years ago, just about every city was walkable because, well, how the hell else are you going to get around? Oh yeah,
Horses.
So the most walkable places were very often sort of old places or the old part of the city. But I still assumed that you're going to need to have that population in order to make a place interesting, walkable or not.
The place that shattered that assumption for me was Haarlem in the Netherlands.
So here was a city with a population of under 200,000 people, and yet it was full of life. There were people out enjoying themselves. They were out in cafes and restaurants with busy outdoor patios. There were cool microbreweries, great public transit, and all these interesting things to see and do. And after a little bit of exploring, I found out that Haarlem was not the only interesting small city in the Netherlands. There were actually several others, like Utrecht and Groningen, Nijmegen, and similar cities that are...
That pronunciation, though, he was killing it. I want to go to all these cities. They sound super interesting. And I think there's certainly something to be said for geography of cities. Like in Canada, we're a massive country, and cities are there's huge spans of distance between cities, so it's not necessarily like the Netherlands where you can just copy paste. Like they have something, I feel like the Netherlands, you have something unique and something that other countries would covet. However, it might not work in other countries. There's so many mountains here and rivers and lakes, and everything's so spread out. We're by landmass one of the largest countries in the world, whereas like Vancouver, it's stuck between mountains and ocean, right? So it's there's two sides to that, and the congestion and the traffic in Vancouver is absolutely disgusting. But why can't they make it work in a better way? There's a lot of amazing walkability in Vancouver if you live downtown, certainly, but
are impossible for English speakers to properly pronounce. So what was it that made these places so interesting, while London, Ontario made me want to escape as soon as possible? Well, ultimately, I suppose that's what this YouTube channel is about. Why are Dutch cities so great to live in? What makes them so much more enjoyable to be in than cities in many other countries? And what can we learn from these places? So I'm going to explore these questions in some greater detail in some future videos, because I found there's actually a lot of good reasons why Dutch cities are so great, and it's not just bikes.
Oh, he got the channel title there at the end. He just did a monologue across countries and cities. That was great. Good video. What's going on here? Yeah, we didn't really get into the why. We got a very, very beautiful introduction that was super interesting, and it certainly contrasted the two different styles of city planning. But like, let's just look at the Netherlands for a sec. The Netherlands. Let's look at that map for a second. Let's just open that up. Maps. So the Netherlands, I think a few of you guys have commented, it's pretty flat, right? So you have like Rotterdam, Amsterdam there. There's Haarlem, the city that he was speaking about. So, for instance, how far is it from Haarlem to Amsterdam? I'm just curious. Looks pretty close. About 30 minutes by car. 30 kilometers. Okay. So it's pretty darn close to Amsterdam. Interesting. I assume most of the cities he mentioned in the video are fairly bunched up. Like that's definitely one thing Europe has. Like you can have a lot more density within your cities and your city planning. But like, let's look at the Netherlands. It's fairly small. Like, it's not huge. Certainly not huge. So let's go across the ocean. Oh shit! Look at British Columbia. Look how big it is. It's absolutely massive. That's staggering. Holy shit. So Netherlands it's basically comparable to the size of Vancouver Island. Comparable. And Vancouver Island is tiny in comparison to the rest of British Columbia. And while it is fair, most of the people in British Columbia live within this viewpoint. Like, the vast majority of people within British Columbia live probably within this viewpoint, actually, to be honest. You know, you have Vancouver and the Vancouver metropolitan area. Then you go across to Victoria. And then as you go north on the island, population will shrink incrementally as you go. So like Nanaimo, I think, is about a city of about 100K, maybe 150. You get down to Comox Valley. I think the population there is probably about 75,000, maybe 80,000. I'm actually not 100% sure, but you have Cumberland, Courtenay, Comox Valley, Black Creek, Union Bay. All these little places have population pockets, but still, in comparison to Metro Vancouver, very, very small population. Keep going up the island, Cam River, probably even a smaller population, maybe 40,000 people. You have Quadro Island. People live over here. Ferry goes across. Quadro Island has a very small population, obviously. I don't know how many, a few thousand, maybe 5,000. And you go north of Campbell River, and it's essentially no population. And yeah, all the way up to Port McNeill, and then eventually Port Hardy, where it's kind of the last stop for civilization, unless you're doing hiking or going over to San Josef Bay and Cape Scott Provincial Park for some nature activities, Cole Harbor. But you have people that covet these areas, right? Like, say, people that live in Cole Harbor. There's maybe a population of a few hundred, but for some people, that's ideal. So not everybody wants to live in a city, right? So there's something to be said about that. And the argument can be made for cities, of course, people that love people and the hustle and bustle. And I think a place like the Netherlands, which makes a very, very good case and a good effort to make cities more enjoyable, so less noise pollution, better walkability, safer, better public transit. It makes it a lot better. And I think we spoke, there was a few comments about rural areas in the Netherlands. And somebody commented like, well, I think the rural areas in Canada are a bit different because just the sheer amount of space, right? So you're not going to ride a bike 100 kilometers, right? So, all right, we'll see you on the next video. Cheers. Have a good day.